Alright guys, today what we are going to do is we are going to talk about the difference between expressions and equations, and then we're going to work on turning verbal equations into mathematical equations. So, first of all, an expression is numbers, symbols, and operators that are grouped together. And an equation is just an expression set equal to something. So if you need to, go ahead and pause the video to write those down. Now an expression looks like an equation, but it doesn't have an equal sign. For example, 2xy plus 5, that's an expression. However, when we take an expression and set it equal to something, for example, 2xy plus 5 equals 2xy plus 4, that's when it becomes an equation. So an equation is different from an expression because it has an equal sign in it. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take these verbal equations, and we're going to turn them into algebraic equations. So on number 1, it says 10 times the number x is equal to 2.8 times the difference y minus z. Now, the first thing you need to do when you're presented with something like this is you need to find the phrase that represents the equal sign. Now these phrases could be anything from as obvious as is equal to or equals to just a small phrase as is the same as or is could just be it. So 10 times the number x is equal to 2.8 times the difference at y minus z. Once you find that phrase, I want you to circle it. So this phrase right here, is equal to, represents my equal sign, and I'm going to put an equal sign right above it. Everything to the left of this phrase goes on the left of the equal sign, and everything to the right of this phrase goes on the right side of the equal sign. So on the left side, I have 10 times a number x. Well, I definitely know how to write that. 10 times the number x is just 10x. Then we'll have our equal sign. And on the right side, it's just a little bit different. We haven't seen anything like this, so I just want to bring your attention to it. We're going to have 2.8 times, but we're multiplying 2.8 times a difference. And this is where things get a little bit messy. Last chapter we learned about the phrase the quantity of, and the quantity of represents the parentheses, and whatever comes after that phrase was going to go in the parentheses. Now, when you see an algebraic equation and it says times the difference or times the sum, that's the same thing as if you were to say times the quantity of, and then whatever comes after goes in the parentheses. So we're going to have 2.8, and we're going to have times the difference, so that means I need to put parentheses, and I want y minus z. Don't forget to cross your z's. So 2.8 times the difference, y minus z. On number 2, a number m minus 8 is the same as a number n divided by 2. So I want to find the phrase that represents the equal sign and circle it. I'm going to put the equal sign right above it. Everything to the left goes to the left. Everything to the right goes to the right. So a number m minus 8. It's pretty straightforward. M minus 8 is the same as a number n divided by 2. So I have n in the numerator, 2 in the denominator. Remember, we don't like to use this symbol for divided by because it's really not high school level. Number 3. 3 times the number t minus 12 equals 40. This one's pretty easy because equals represents the equal sign. On the left side, we want 3 times the number t. We can definitely write that. 3 times the number t minus 12 equals, and on the right side we just have 40. So we're taking this one step at a time. The most important thing to do first is find the equal sign, make sure it's represented correctly. Everything to the left goes on the left, everything to the right goes on the right. Number 4, 1/2 of the difference of a and b is 54. So the word that represents the equal sign is a little bit harder to spot on this one, and it's just is. Everything on the left goes on the left, everything on the right goes on the right. So on the first part, it says 1/2 of the difference. Now that's the same thing as saying like 1/2 times the difference, which, like I said up above, is kind of like the same thing as times the quantity of. So we're going to start with 1/2 and of the difference, so times the difference is like parentheses, and I want the difference between A and B. So A minus B is 54. Number 5, 3 times the sum of D and 4 is 32. So we have is representing our equal sign. On the left side, we're taking 3 times the sum of two things. So 3 times the sum is like saying 3 times the quantity of the sum of D and 4. So D plus 4 is 32. Number 6, 53 plus 4 times B is as much as 21. So that's a big phrase that represents the equal sign there. What I'd like you to do is pause the video and try number 6 on your own. Hopefully you got 53 plus 4 times B equals 21. Number 7, the sum of 5 times H and twice G is equal to 23. So I've got my equal sign right there, and I'm going to have the sum, so I'm going to be adding 5 times H and twice G. Now remember, twice G is like saying 2 times G. So I want to add those two together, so 5H plus 2G, and that's going to equal 23. Number 8, 1/4 the sum of R and 10 is identical to R minus 4. So on the left-hand side, we have 1/4 the sum. So that's like saying 1/4 times the sum of R and 10. So since I'm multiplying by the sum, we're going to have 1/4 and the quantity of, and I want the sum of R and 10, so R plus 10, is identical to, so equals, R minus 4. Number 9, 3 plus the sum of the squares of W and X is 32. Now this one's really tricky, so we're going to go through this one pretty slowly, okay? We're going to start with 3 plus the sum, so we're going to be adding some things together, the squares of W and X. Now here's what's a little weird. When we said times the sum and times the difference, that's when we were multiplying by the quantity of. This is kind of going to be the same thing. So we're going to take 3 and add it to the quantity of the squares of W and X being added together. So that means I want the square of W, which is W squared, being added to the square of X, which is X squared. And that whole thing is going to be in parentheses. So we're going to start with 3 plus the quantity of W squared plus X squared is 32. Alright, that does it for section 2.1. If you guys have any questions, let me know.